calling all Coventry residents. On Saturday the 5th of June, we'll be watching the extraordinary Coventry Moves from our homes. Then in the evening, everyone who lives and works in Coventry is invited to take part in an incredible musical premiere happening live from our own doorsteps. At the exact time of 2021, local and community radio stations from across the city will be playing single streams of music, each one created by composer and sound artist Dan Jones using Coventry's children's voices. As we turn our radios on, each stream will meet weaving a musical tapestry across the city, the likes of which has never been heard anywhere in the world. So we need you to talk with your neighbours and make a plan of action. Who's tuning into which station? Who's turning on the car radio? And who's using that Bluetooth speaker? Coventry Moves Together. Talk to your neighbours, tune in and take part.
People, we're locked in, we're live and direct on the Big Bad Station, arawakradio.com, and we're here with Dan Jones. And of course, Dan, tell us who you are and what project you're doing.
Well, my name's, as you said, Dan Jones. I'm a composer. I'm working with Vicky on a piece called Coventry Moves Together, which for the 5th of June at 2021, that's 21 minutes past 8, not just a year, we're reaching out to everybody in Coventry and inviting them to take part in a sort of mass participation event. It's a piece of music which will only work if we can persuade as many people as possible, ideally everyone, to pick up phones, radios, turn on their car hi-fi and tune into one of 9 radio stations, Bluetooth speakers, smart TVs, you name it, anything that will get a digital stream from any of the 9 radio stations. And what we're doing is playing through each of those radio stations a different part of this piece of music. So it's like a big musical jigsaw puzzle that the citizens of Coventry are going to put together in an act that really represents very really the sort of community spirit of coming together, sort of reminiscent of Clapping for Carers, people coming out into their streets on the doorsteps and listening to all these different radio signals coming together to form one huge piece of music that's going to weave its way right across Coventry. And I think the more people that can take part in that, the more magical it's going to be. We've got the input of the CBSO, the Coventry Cathedral. I'm giving away too much already, but it's going to be a magical thing that, I just feel like I'm the curator, a very lucky curator of some amazing talent, not least that of some brilliant primary school kids as well.
Definitely. And so what made you come up with this idea?
Well, it's a team effort. I think I was rung up because I've done some very, very big surround sound pieces before outdoors using hot air balloons to suspend a surround sound system as it floats over the city. A thing called Sky Orchestra I did with Luke Jerram. And we were looking for a way when I got the phone call from the Coventry team, speaking to Justine Themen and her colleagues, sound designer Mike Beer. We were looking for a way of including as many people as possible in the last moments of this extraordinary celebratory day. And we looked at, I even mentioned airships at one stage, or putting speakers on the tops of very tall buildings and sort of blasting them out across Coventry. And that's all fine and good. A, it's very expensive, and B, it didn't really do what we wanted to do, which was to include people in bringing the performance together. So I think it was Mike, actually, it may have been Justine, that it was group thinking. We steered the piece towards actually, rather than these big epic ideas of big speaker systems and so on, about what people have to hand, their phones, their radios, their car hi-fis, and them having agency in producing this piece of music, but still having that kind of extraordinary epic quality of a piece that is going to unfurl all the way across the suburbs of Coventry. Wow.
And when it comes to that, what kind of pieces can people expect? What kind of music, what kind of sounds are there?
Well, I suppose it's broadly what you'd categorise as ambient, and there's a reason for that. I can't, as I've experienced this before, when the hot air balloons go up the Sky Orchestra, the sheer scale of the distances involved means that the time the sound takes to travel means that the music has to be able to slip over each other, as it were, and have a sort of elastic relationship with each part. What I mean by that is if you had very precise, tight rhythms, you know, drumming and fiddly bits like that, it wouldn't sync up properly. And you'd think with radio technology we'd have a way of doing that. But interestingly, even radios produce their own delays because of the different transmission systems. So I'm getting into the weeds with technicalities. As you can tell, I've just been coming out of my mix on this. But the truth of the matter is that I kind of want it to be ambient anyway, because I think it's about creating a musical space for people to connect and for us to feel that we're coming back together as a community, which is what we need to do. And when you use surround sound, you're not just metaphorically making a musical space, you're really creating, it's like having a bath in music. You're bathing in the sound, and that's what we want to do, is create a beautiful experience, a sort of heightened moment of togetherness for the citizens of Coventry.
Wow, for real. And is that why you chose community stations? Because often enough, you know, these sort of projects, they go straight to the BBC and that's kind of it. But for this one, it's community based, and I like that. Is that one of the reasons why?
Absolutely. It's a big shout out from us, thanks from everybody working at Coventry 2021 and myself included, saying thank you to you guys. All of the radio stations have come together with such a kind of can-do spirit, and I think it would be great if your followers and listeners sort of supported you on the day and tuned into their station, their favourite station. So I absolutely. This wouldn't work without the input of all 9 radio stations, because otherwise it would just be, you know, it's a beautiful thing to listen to the radio, but it wouldn't be this extraordinary event where we're doing something quite unprecedented of putting one piece of music through all 9 radio stations. I think it's 9 that are involved. And I think there's something beautifully symbolic about radio as well, because there are several reasons for that. I mean, it's the thing that has connected us as a community through thick and thin, tough times and good, right through the history of the last sort of 80, 90 years. And, you know, even the loneliest ship at sea has a radio contact with the rest of the world. And I sort of feel that feels very apt, given what we've all just been through and are still going through in some ways. There's another reason I think radio has beautiful resonance for Coventry, because a lot of people are talking about Delia Derbyshire, an amazing composer, most famously known for her Doctor Who theme. She's got an amazing body of work behind her, including a lot of other pieces for radio. As a member of the Radiophonic Workshop, they largely did work for TV, but it started out as a radio music and sound department in the BBC, and she loved radio. She wrote a piece with another composer called Inventions for Radio. She wrote that with Barry Bermange, and I think I found out after we'd chosen to do this, which is a beautiful coincidence, that she'd actually had an idea that one day it'd be great to do a version playing it through several radio stations.
Yeah.
So,
well, that sounds like a good idea for the future. So when it comes to that, do you think this will be one of many for the future?
You mean one of many pieces?
Yeah.
Well, what, for me personally, or for...
I don't know, I suppose for yourself or other composers, other people that put pieces together, or is it just very much hard work and no, never again?
Well, I will definitely accept any invitations to do. I learn something every time I do these sort of surround sound pieces about, you know, how to divide up the music and do that thing that feels like a sort of piece of magic when it works, of creating a musical space that's sort of where the air is humming around you. And it's a continual fascination for me personally, and absolutely in terms of other composers working with these formats. I think the more we can do to take music out of concert halls, I mean, I've got nothing against that. There are certain things, symphony orchestras being one of them, that are very hard to sort of put out in the weather, and the concert hall is a beautiful thing in its own right. But I think it's great that we can extend the idea of how music interacts with our lives with community spaces, with civic spaces in cities and beyond. And it's a great way to sort of, I think our climate in Britain has not done so well for us. I mean, I used to live in Rome, and luckily for me, and you know, you'd wander through a park one evening and hear an opera floating through the trees and discover that there was a free production being put on outdoors. Obviously easier for them with more reliable weather, but there's something very beautiful about bringing music outdoors and creating, as I say, this sort of magical space in which people can connect with their thoughts and feelings and connect with each other as well.
Definitely. And you know, one of the passions for myself is young people. Do you think this will connect more young people together?
I hope so. I haven't spoken about the kids yet, and they are, for me, the stars of the piece by far and away. We went into 4 primary schools across Coventry. I'm gonna name check them actually because they deserve a shout out.
Okay.
If I can find, I've got a hopeless memory, but it was Longford Park, Moseley, Alderman's Green, and Willenhall. They let us work with, you know, not all of their kids, we wouldn't have had time, but we probably worked with about 100 children across the school, and we went in sort of saying to them, we're not going to tell you what to sing, we want you to tell us what the music should sound like. So we got them to improvise their own ideas musically. That was one thing, and my promise to them was that I would then find a way of weaving that together into this giant tapestry. The second thing we did is we asked them a question while we had the mic open. We said, what do you want for the future? What do you want for the future of Coventry? And the thing I found very beautiful about that is you could easily, you know, you ask people about the future, and generally speaking, they think of futuristic things, technological things, material things quite a lot of the time. But all the children, without exception, wanted to steer the conversation towards how we look after each other in the future. And I was blown away by that. I think that's absolutely extraordinary. These are kids who are 6 to 9 years old, roughly speaking, and I was very moved by that. And when I edited all those thoughts together for the piece of music, I realised that was the heart of the piece. Yeah. And all credit to them.
Wow, that is actually very moving, but very real. It's nice to know that for the future is definitely safe.
In their hands.
Yeah.
I think if they can hang on to that extraordinary spirit, and I have to say, it filled me with optimism, not just because of that, but because they were full of optimism. There's that their resilience and the way that they are bouncing back is a great sign. And I think too, just to add, as somebody pointed out to me the other day, this is possibly something very indicative of the kind of spirit in Coventry, that there is that sense of reconciliation sort of woven into the city.
Definitely is. And you know, when it comes to this piece, in 3 words, how would you describe it?
Well, for me, 3 words, that's tough. Gosh, you can tell I'm quite, you know, a waffler, so 3 words is going to be a challenge. Beautiful because of the children.
Yeah. Well, I like that. That's definitely true. And so, for the listeners who are locking in and, you know, they're going to listen to this piece, what would you like them to take away from it?
A sense of being able to move forwards and come back together, and that this is not just symbolic, but a real move towards an emotional connection that I think people do have anyway, but an opportunity to show that and display that, and you know, that kind of, if you will, I don't want to say camaraderie, it doesn't feel quite the right word, but the solidarity, communality is so important to us. And if you're going to celebrate a city and look at what cities mean, I think there could be nothing more important than how we live together successfully and look after each other, that's not from me, that's what I, you know, got from the kids.
Yeah, that's definitely something powerful. And so, you know what, Dan, I really appreciate your time and talking to us about this project. It's definitely appreciated. I'm looking forward to Saturday to hear what the piece is. And if people wanted to get in touch with you, say if they enjoyed the piece that much and they wanted to get in touch with yourself, how can they do that?
Well, you can probably find details from me online somewhere, but I think what's really important is that it goes via Coventry 2021, because they will really want to know how this has worked. So you can go onto the Coventry City of Culture website and find details there of how to get in touch, and the messages will get through. And if somebody feels they need a response from me, then I'll absolutely promise to reply. And although Vicky, who's my producer, will probably be thinking she'd quite like some replies to her emails, but I do reply eventually.
Okay.
So I promise I'll reply. But I think it's really important it goes through the Coventry 2021 team, because they need to know how this works as the city moves forward. I think their feedback about how Coventry is feeling about itself is crucial. So for how to have this year really do what it should do, which, it's not for me to say, but I see these City of Culture things, fantastic ways of reinvigorating a city. And it's not just to do with the most immediate aspects of that, to do with art and performance and seeing beautiful murals on walls around the city and so on. That's fantastic, but it really, really does move a city forward in a much wider sense, socially and in terms of its industry and the way its people feel empowered to sort of move forwards.
Most definitely. It's been a blessing to speak with yourself and hear about the project. And as I say, I'm looking forward to it. And thank you to you both for arranging the interview.
Well, thank you, Katrina. Can I just quickly say thank you to Arawak Radio for taking part? It's really much appreciated.
Anytime.